happening. We're live. The tea is already poured. This is how we start today. I'm also very hot because I'm wearing a undershirt, and I've got jeans with a flannel lining. That's flannel right there underneath, or maybe it's fleece, but it's warm. It makes for a toasty, comfortable experience. I wear these pants. I'm going downtown after this live to get more work done on this tattoo. You can kind of see on my chest there and the arm piece. And I went downtown wearing these jeans, and I sweat my ass off. Quite literally. Not actually quite literally. I still have an ass, but boy, did I sweat a lot. I was a little embarrassed. But it turns out getting your chest area tattooed is incredibly painful, and I wouldn't recommend it. So, but I'm not gonna stop halfway through here. So, yeah, sweat your ass off. That's how it goes. That's the moral of that story. Ooh, that's nice. All right, well, I've got my stream here. I'm gonna make that a bit smaller so it looks like I'm looking at the camera. They tell me this makes it, if I'm looking at you like this, that's better than if I'm looking at you like over there. And we're gonna move this window here so I can see the comments, of which there are currently none. But if there are people that would like to comment, there's 2 people watching. If you want to comment, that would feel delicious. I like that. There's my topics. I'll move them here. This is kind of nice, right? Just getting it behind this. It's like you're my apprentice. In the coaching world, there's a whole bunch. Let me draw some distinctions out. We'll just dive right into the coaching world. So the coaching world has a few kind of arbitrary Venn diagram circles that I've drawn. One of them is sort of the corporate-y, businessy coaching, which is a bit dry, and a lot of it is sort of like performance management. So it's not particularly breakthrough related or transformational, although that capacity does exist, but it's sort of like it's the corporation and we do the stuff. Morning, Jess. Nice to see you. Then you've got the International Coach Federation. It's the ICF. And that's a huge international bureaucracy with little, what do they call them? Chapters around the world, your ICF chapter. And the ICF feels a lot like most bureaucracies feel, which is to say bureaucratic. And it's not super sexy. It's a little bit dry. It's not the most exciting thing. And so you've got the corporate world, which has a fair bit of overlap with the ICF. You've got the kind of transformational world, which is a lot, that would be at the highest levels of ICF practice, the master certified coaches. You've got the coaches that are sort of really committed to like this work, transform lives. Good morning, Tommy. And, it's magical and blah, blah, blah. So we've got these 3. And then 4th, you've got kind of what I would call the rock star coaches. So these are the people that are almost like celebrities in their own right. They're kind of weird. They're out on the fringe. Maybe they're transformational, but who actually knows? But there's this sort of like aura of glamour that when people are around them, they're a little gaga. And from that, people feel empowered just by the presence of these people. So those are the sort of distinctions I've noticed. How the heck did I get on this topic? What was I talking about that led me here? I can't even remember. Let's have a sip of tea to jog my memory. It's totally gone. The bridge I try to be, I'm very committed to best practices, to creating a bit of a container for coaching so that it doesn't just become wishy-washy and anyone can be like, I help people lose weight nutritionally by selling them shake products. I'm a coach. So I am very committed to standards and to people learning through particular ways of practice and to scaffolding, at least in the early days before you become masterful, at which point you must let go of the scaffolding. And so I want to be a bridge between that and that stodginess is a bit dull for me. The bridge between that and the rock star coaching. And so that's the place I'm always committed to occupying. How the hell did I get on this topic? Do you guys remember? I have no recollection whatsoever. I was probably going to say something cool about it. Didn't end up happening. It's good tea. Who do you think you are? And all of these, look at these huge printout. That's 400 pages of writing there, is all done proofreading. I'm done with you. And I've put all the proofreading into the book. We've gone through it with an editor. They sent it back. I proofread it some more. Blah, 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 blah. And now we are at the stage where we are just laying out the book, making it look beautiful for you. I'm in the process now of going through and grabbing pull quotes. So you have, a book like this. It's fairly dense, and a lot of the middle part of the book is like Strengths Finder. It's almost a reference piece, like a dictionary where you'd look up like, hey, what are people that are passionate really like? How do they get stuck? What's their survival mechanism? How do I lead those people? Great, you flip to passion. You're not intended to read through that page by page, though, because it'd be quite boring. It'd be like sitting down and intending to read through an encyclopedia, which I would actually find quite enjoyable, but maybe more appropriate analogy, but he's sitting down and reading through a dictionary, which is kind of dry. You're going to get bored doing that. And so just to add some visual interest, to make the book more enjoyable to flip through, we're grabbing pull quotes and stuff so that we can kind of like add some visual interest, keep it more interesting. Some illumination, as they used to call it in the old-timey days. Illumination on pages was in, back when monks would like hand write all of these pages out, when that's how books are created. The illumination was like the fancy lettering and all of the like sort of stuff they would put around the words to create a more visually interesting page. It illuminated the writing. Here's our cover for the book. Who do you think you are? Adam Quiney. The colors aren't quite right, so this actually looks a bit too it's a little, the hue is turned up a bit too high, so it looks a bit too brightly blue and stuff like that. But the idea here is that, you can see the many layers of the human being, and then at the center is, ooh, look at that meadow. Don't you want to go swim in this river? Hell yeah. And then down here, you can't see it quite right, but it says, who do you think you are? A leader's guide to what the mirror doesn't show you. And then Adam Quiney, c'est moi. That's me. So fairly simple. We did a lot of work to get here. I really like this. It is very blue, Bob. Right now, this is incredibly blue. I also like that it almost looks like this guy's saying, who do you think you are, person looking at this book? So be fairly large. I'm very committed to putting out a hardcover because, again, I want this to be a beautiful book you can have on your desk. I'm going to show you a book that's not nice to have on your desk. I want it to be a beautiful book that coaches and leaders can have on their desk and sort of turn to and flip open and look to support them in their coaching and their leadership. That's my intention in creating this. So if I'm going to do that, I don't want to give you some ugly, dumb, thick tome that you're like, I don't want to look at this. I'll stuff it in my drawer and you'll forget about it. So I think that that's going to make a really nice looking book, an attractive thing to have on there. Here's an amazing book called Speaking Being. I love this book. Look how fucking ugly this thing is. It's a giant brick of a book. I can't put that on a bookshelf. There's no way that fits. It's humongous. I don't want to leave this on my desk. It's very ugly. Look at all this just stupid text. And then you've got this. I don't know what that is. Is that what being looks like? Is this the heart of ontology? I don't know. I'm tearing an asshole into this book. Tearing a new one. Now, that being said, contrast how ugly and stupid this book is with how many book darts there are in that book. That's a lot, right? This is a book that I found really, really, really fascinating and a good book to read. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be moving that forward. It's taking a long time, but we're almost there. Fuck that book. Have you read Speaking Being, Bob? I think you might enjoy it. Possibly. Parts, at least. Some people really, I have friends that really were fascinated by the comparison of Werner Erhard's ideas on ontology and then Martin Heidegger, the famous German philosopher who did a lot of work in ontology. I found that less interesting. What I found fascinating was just reading a transcript of someone delivering ontology. I'm going to see if I can just flip really quickly to something in here. There's so many. I'm just going to try to find. Let's just find something I can quote you from it. Let me. I just saw something here. Doop, doop, doo. Yeah, this is a very simple piece that Werner says here. He says, let me tell you something. Anytime you actually meet yourself, it'll move you to tears. That's very simple. And what Werner is speaking to there is that as humans, we rarely, if ever, get the opportunity to truly see ourselves and to be seen. Hey, Dave, nice to see you, man. So rarely, if ever, do we get that opportunity. We think we do. We're like, oh yeah, I sit down, I meditate, and then I see myself. It's not really accurate because to see oneself is to sort of see. In order to do that, you'd have to separate yourself out from yourself because what happens is you go into the world and you cast this aura, this quality of being, this experience people have in your presence. They get that experience because they're in the room when you're not, and they're in the room when you leave. So they get to have a contrast between, oh, this is what it's like when Adam comes into the room, and this is what it's like when Adam leaves the room. I never get that experience. I never get to separate myself so as to experience the world with Adam present and with Adam absent. What a dark world that would be with Adam absent. So actually getting the experience of seeing ourselves, of really meeting ourselves, as Werner puts it, is a very rare thing and incredibly moving. And my belief, you've probably heard me say this a few times, is that the most powerful experience we can have as a human being is to truly be seen, and to truly see someone. If you really, in your work with someone, get the opportunity to truly see them, absent all their filters, absent all your filters, absent all of the stuff they're doing to stay hidden, safe, to not be fully seen, to not be in the naked vulnerability of having someone truly see us. If you really get to see someone like that, that will move you to tears every time. It's very powerful. I just want to find one other thing here to read to y'all. A bunch of book darts. What do you got, Werner? You got anything else for us? We're not going to try too much harder. I'm going to look one last time. Last time. Okay. I couldn't find anything else. There's a bunch of stuff in there. I recommend reading that book. It's great. And then stuff it in a safe somewhere. Know that it's an awesome book, but that book stays way up there on my shelf, hidden away because it's ugly and I don't like looking at it. Okay. Who's all here that hasn't put something in the chat? Just say a comment. I want to say hello to you. I want to give you the specific Adam shout out. The shout out we all come here for. We all love it. And if you'd like a shout out again, just put something in the comment. 2 more people just left. People don't like that shout out. But let me shout you out because it's nice to be shouted out. I can say it softly too. Hello, Monica. Monica, I am so excited to get started in the Forge with you in September. We've got, I think we just had our 5th participant register. And Monica was the first person to register for this coming year's Forge. So keep your eyes on her. She's up to some big work. I'm really excited for what that's going to look like. What's up? Okay, so one person got a shout out. It's okay. We don't make that wrong. Let's start with, we got a bunch of viewer questions, which I'm always excited about. So let's start with Andrew's question. Andrew Mundy, longtime listener. Says, Adam, I've got a topic for you, and I do recall you covering this fairly recently, but it could be a good opportunity from a different angle. That's code for he didn't like the answer I gave. He wants a better answer. I'll give you a better answer. He says, recently I've received some feedback from evaluators and clients who basically shared a theme that I've been unwilling to play in the space of how-to or consultant with my clients when it arises in the coaching sessions. Andrew kind of jokingly says, I'm open to exploring that side of coaching, but not too open, laughing out loud. So he's kind of recognized he's got some resistance here. I'd like to hear your thoughts on standing for the art of coaching while giving space for the potential how-to or consultant-based requests that can come up in a coaching session. So let's do a bit of work. Let's distinguish some of what might be going on there before we get into what you do about it. So first of all, most people, especially those that aren't really trained in this work called coaching, operate with the belief that what coaches do is they tell you how to do stuff. You go to your coach and you're like, I don't know how to do this. And then the coach says, well, do it this way. This is what worked for me. That's not at all coaching. That would be more akin to coaching or your parents or a relationship with a friend who's a bit obnoxious and maybe bossy. Coaching in its purest sense is absent me telling you what to do. This can take some getting used to for people. It can take getting used to because, one, the way the world looks, it's not the way the world has to be, it's not the way the world always be, but the way the world typically is set up is that people are eager to tell you what to do and to have you tell them what to do. That's our default context. If I come to you and start sharing what's going on, I usually want you to commiserate with me, just hear me, or I want you to fix it. And stereotypically, masculine, people identifying as men, whatever, men tend to share from a place of like, tell me how to do this. I'm looking for some advice. And then women, stereotypically at least, would share from, I want to be heard. I don't want you to fix this for me. I don't want you to change it. I just want to be heard in this. So let me set a fan up in here. Notice I'm schwitzing. I don't want to schwitz. There we go. All right. Look at that. Okay, that's going to be better. Oh, cool air. Throw my hair back. Huivel splash. So we've got like the way the world tends to be, and then we've got what coaching is based in. And when a client or a prospect or someone new first starts working with a coach, this can create a bit of a clash. The clash can be that the client is doing basically what they should be doing, which is showing up to the world exactly the way they are, interacting with the world exactly the way they've been trained to interact with the world, which is to say they come to the coach, they're like, all right, finally, I've got this person, they're going to help me address this, tell me how to get out of the hole I'm stuck in, or tell me how to fix this, or So they come to the coach wanting consulting. And the coach, especially a newer coach, is like, but that's not what I do. And so then the clash, the conflict that can happen is that the coach is working to not give the client, the person, any kind of answer, any kind of how-to, because their commitment is to draw out the inventiveness and the resourcefulness of the person they're speaking with. You don't need me to actually tell you the answer to how to do something. The answer is within you. You just need to be willing to make some mistakes, to take some swings, to practice and grow from there. Just like a child does not need me to tell it how to walk. I don't know anyone that learned to walk because their parents like grabbed their legs and moved them like that and were like, make sure you put the next foot in front. Oh, don't fall. Oh, do that. None of that happened. If you learn to walk that way, please let me know. I would love that. So as children, this natural way of evolving, of developing, of finding our way into the world it's abundant and it's taken for granted. We don't know any differently. And then over time, if that's the initial energetic shape, I'm just making up a shape, the world slowly forms us into this shape by giving us advice, telling us what to do, telling us what not to do, blah, 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 until we lose that resourcefulness. A large part of what coaching is doing is supporting you to open back up, to learn how to trust yourself, to learn to trust yourself that no matter what kind of mess you make, no matter what kind of mistakes you make, you will be able to find your way back to wholeness, to completeness. You'll be able to clean up those mistakes and those messes, and you will be able to continue to learn and grow from that place. And so that develops this deep, deep rooted trust in yourself rather than in the world, so to speak. What I mean by that is, I trust the world will not be a jerk to me if I make a mistake. That's a sort of, it's less of trust and it's more of like, actually imbued in that is a lack of trust on myself. If I really trust myself, I'm okay with however the world shows up in response to the way I showed up. The world may show up and say, Adam, you're a jerkwad for doing that thing you did and that mess was horrible. And from a deep internal trust, I can know that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm not actually a bad person. I didn't mean to do that. And I trust myself to be able to clean this up, get everything back to a state of wholeness, and then continue my path. That's deep trust in self. So that's what the baby has, right? The baby has it from innocence. They know no differently. They've learned nothing else. So the journey starts here in babyhood, innocent, don't know that there's any impact to your actions, and you just learn by learning. You learn from your own resourcefulness. Then there's the point where we learn, like, I need to learn from everyone else. I can't trust myself. And then as you work with someone who's transformational, you learn to open back up, to discover that same kind of freedom of exploration and self-trust, but from a place of wisdom rather than ignorant bliss. All right. So that's what we've laid all that out. That's what this new coach is trying to do with this client. And the client's like, help me. And the coach is like, well, that's not what I do. Here's what's missing in that. As coach, my job, your job, our job, is always to meet the client where they're at. So you could think of it a little bit like someone who is afraid of, I don't know, jumping over a hole. And you as a coach are like, I know this person can leap tall bounds because I know that they're going to be fine. What tends to happen is coaches that are early on in their game don't have any capacity to calibrate themselves. So they don't really meet the client where they're at. They meet the client where the coach is at. So this would be like a coach standing on one side of the Grand Canyon and being like, jump, the hole is not real. You don't need to be afraid of it. And the client's like, fuck, this is terrifying. As opposed to meeting the client where they're at, which is like, oh, there's a tiny little hole here. Let's let them jump over that. So Andrew is asking, like, what's going on? How do I honor the sanctity of coaching? How do I honor supporting people to learn how to trust themselves, to discover their intuition, the resourcefulness, all of what makes them beautiful, while at the same time not just consulting them? And where is the mastery, really, is what I hear Andrew's asking for. So the mastery comes in our ability to distinguish what we're doing. I'm gonna elaborate on these a bit, but to distinguish what we're doing, to recognize where the client's at, and to be flexible and fluid in the process. So what I mean by distinguishing what I'm doing, when I get a new client, it's inevitable that they're going to, oh, nice, Bob. Bob just bought Speaking Being. Let me know how you enjoy it or don't enjoy. Let me know how it lands with you, Bob. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I always love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts on this in particular. So early on, first of all, my clients tend to have a lot of brilliance, and what brilliant people tend to have, like from their survival mechanism, their shadow, is two different states. The first state is, I know all the answers, so shut up and listen to me. You don't know the answers, so you need to listen to me. And then they play out the other side of that pole with other people. I don't know the answers, so I need to shut up and listen to you. When they hire me as a coach, one or two of those poles show up, but early on, it's usually the, I don't know any of the answers, you tell me all the answers, coach. So my people just naturally have a craving for answers. They want me to give them how to. They want me to tell them more as opposed to coach them to pure coaching. And so my job early on, I'm going to come to what I mean by distinguishing, my job early on is to recognize that gradient for them. How much of their own resourcefulness, how much of their own resourcefulness, how much trust do they have in themselves at this point? Probably not that much. They've just started working with me. Maybe I can meet them at a low gradient. And what I'm going to do to make sure they're clear on what's happening is I'm going to let them know what I'm doing so they don't confuse it with coaching. So I'm going to go, hey, it seems like, my stand over here is that you learn to trust your own resourcefulness rather than to rely on me for answers or to rely on anyone for answers, so that this stops being a relationship where you come to Adam to figure out the answer, and instead you come here to get supported to figure your own answer out. Often people complain, people quit coaching often, and they say, especially coaches do this, quite yucky. They go, oh, I realized I was using the coach as a substitute for my own thinking. Kind of like, I need to put on my, I need to grow up. I need to put on my adult shirt. I need to do that. And I was relying on my coach instead of relying on myself. That's where the coach has never expanded the gradient. So that coach has just told them over and over what to do. The coach has never really made the shift. So they haven't progressed. They haven't been fluid. They haven't built the gradient of their client. And so my job is to first distinguish, hey, what I'm going to do right now, it seems like you kind of want a bit of an answer. Do I have that right? Great. I'm going to give you one, but I want to be really clear that my stand is that over time you require an answer from me less and less, and I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to stand for you to go inwards rather than outwards to me. Okay? Great. Here's how I see it. So I'm going to distinguish what I'm doing. I'm going to offer it to them. I distinguish what I'm doing for both of us. I do it for my benefit, so I'm labeling it and I'm clear. Okay, I'm giving an answer right now. This is not coaching in its purest form. This is not where I want to stay, but this is where we are right now. I distinguish it from me so that I have the benefit of reminding myself, being clear that's what I'm doing. And I distinguish it from my clients so that they're also clear what's happening. And so they can they're getting prepped. They're like, oh, okay, he's giving it to me. I don't have to do this all on my own. We're meeting each other where we are. And they're going to become conscious of the times when they're doing that. And they're going to start to do it less and be more willing to practice something different. This is where mastery lies. So not in forcefully like, you must come up with your own answers, which is like giving people a brick wall and then being like, drive off that hill. And they're like, I can't, there's no way I can drive like that. So they just smash into the cliff face and feel very left alone. And it's also where we don't just leave them on this flat road, which feels nice at first, but then people are like, I don't feel like I'm actually growing. And that's where they start to feel like, oh, I'm just reliant on the coach. It's time to end the coaching relationship. And then sadly, where those people often end up is, I just don't think coaching really works, or I've done enough of my work. I don't need to get supported anymore. And when it's coaches that have that story, what they end up doing is creating the exact same thing in all the clients they work with. So clients come and work with them, have that same flat road experience. The coach tells them what to do until they get tired of being told what to do. And then they conclude, oh, there's not much down this hill for me. There's not really any cheese down this tunnel. I guess coaching's not for me. And that kind of sucks because all those people, those whole swaths of people who ostensibly really want to support people to transform in their lives are actually resigning them to the idea that that's not possible. And the way that first begins is because the coach themselves became resigned that transformation is not available because they finished their work. If you really get into transformation, you start to realize, oh, the work never ends. It doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. It doesn't mean you have to keep working with a coach. But what tends to happen is you take off the table the idea like, I'm not going to work with a coach anymore because I don't need any more support. You just start to realize, oh, there's always going to be places I could use some support. So I think that answers your question, Andrew. I'm just going to check and see if there's anything else here. I don't know if that's a different answer than the one I've given in the past. It seems kind of similar. One of the places I'll just share, like a place where I'm working on this myself. Hey, Andrew, I just finished hitting your topic, so you'll have to rewind. I think you can do that. I'm pretty sure I gave you permission to rewind. Monica meet Andrew, Andrew meet Monica. Andrew is also in the Forge in September. We'll be diving in with him. I'm excited to partner with you there as well, Andrew. And I'll talk at this point a little bit. I think Bay and I she doesn't know this, but I want to do hey, Amanda, nice to see you. I want to do a bit of live about the Forge, what's going on, share with Bay and I. But until then, I'm going to share a little bit about my own process in that as one side of the partnership that creates that program. And this is a story I'm going to share because it speaks to how there's always more work. If you're committed to continue to lean into your edges, there's always a new edge. We never become fully formed because that's the nature of life, right? If there was just a point where you arrived and we're done, well, to me, that would be godhood. So the Forge I've shared this a number of times, it's grown over the years, and oftentimes coaches create programs and they get really fixated on like, I need to scale. They hear the words like time for money and, oh my God, I'll never be able to scale. And then they get panicked and then they work themselves up into crazy tizzy because they're like, I need to scale and I need to figure this out. And then they make all these funnel programs. It just seems exhausting. It seems exhausting to me, and my experience when I'm supporting these kind of people is that they are exhausted. While simultaneously, insisting that the reason they're doing all of that is so that they will not be exhausted. And if you look at that solely from a way of being, an ontological perspective, the irony of that is that these people are exhausting themselves in the hopes that eventually they will then become not exhausted. That doesn't make sense, right? If I be exhausted enough, eventually I will be not exhausted. I guess if you go into a coma, maybe. So, so we haven't been doing that. We've been creating what we're committed to creating. We've been doing our own work, and we've been um, doing our best to deliver the promise and commitment of the Forge, which is three things, I think. The first is that coming into this program, you will not leave the way you came in. You will experience your own transformation. That is our promise. Now, we require stuff from the participants for us to deliver on that promise. It's not something we can force upon you. You've got work to do. But our commitment and promise is that coming into the Forge, if you show up and you're willing to play, you will not leave the same way you came in. You will leave more fully expressed as the human being you have always been. So you're going to move a lot of the armor and the stuff that you're currently putting in the way or in between you and the rest of the world. That's going to be moved out of the way so the world gets more of an experience of you. Second, we're going to support and teach you to deliver that same kind of transformation to other people, to become very masterful in the art of doing that. And third, we're going to work and hone your ability to use the skills of coaching, either as a leader, someone who's committed to developing more leadership in the world, maybe you're CEO and you're doing that, or as a coach, someone committed like me to this work. As we've delivered that promise, the Forge has grown and demand for it has increased, and it's filled up sooner and sooner. And we've had to turn people away at the end of each year for the last couple of years. We've taken on a leadership team, and where we're at now is about halfway through. We've just come back from our retreat, which is in Costa Rica, which will be going to the same place we went to this year, next year. And it's been phenomenal. And already only halfway through, a lot of people are saying, hey, I really want to come back for that second year. What that ends up creating, the current structure we have is like 12 participants, 4 what we call leader participants. That's like a first year leadership program, and then 2 leaders in training or something else like that. These are the people that we're supporting their ability to develop leadership in these people, and these people are having their ability to show up as leader, like with the being of leader, not necessarily doing that much stuff to lead other people, but more modeling what it is to show up with the being of leader. That's the first stage of leadership, is to be transformational simply by how you are being, to invite people into a clearing of showing up differently based on how you're willing to show up. So that's our structure, 12, 4, 2. Overwhelming amount of demand this year for people to move up into that second structure. And what that does is it creates a challenge for Bay and I, because the current structure as we can envision it doesn't support that. We don't have, if we were to say, great, all 12 of you or 10 or whatever the number happened to be, you can move up, then we've got 16 people at this level. Maybe we move a few more people up. I don't know. But then we don't have any room for any participants. There's no one for these people to lead, to practice with. So it's a good problem, but it's a breakdown all the same. Good breakdown. It's not the sort of breakdown like, fuck, where am I going to get food? And the tornado ripped the roof off my house. It's a breakdown happening inside of the context of all of what I've created in my life. That context includes abundance, a lot of love, a very rich experience of life, a rich experience of myself with my sadness, my fullness, my joy, my fear, all of that. It's all there. So the sort of breakdowns I have that precede breakthroughs, they're different in flavor because who I be in the world is different in flavor than the man I was 10 years ago. The man I was 10 years ago was closed, skeptical, untrusting, protected, very smart at your expense, very funny at their expense, all of that. And so the breakdowns I had were more sort of like people getting really upset with me because I was being an asshole. And then my inability to create a breakthrough in connection with people and all of that. So the content, the texture of these breakdowns has shifted, but they're still breakdowns. And the breakthrough that Bay and I are committed to creating is to not hold the forge stagnant, not to just keep the same flat road, because that would be to abdicate our own leadership. We wouldn't be modeling leadership and growth and what we're committed to, which is that people take this work out into the world and continue to expand it. That's, by the way, as a side note, that's what brings me my sanity when I get a little bit worried and scared about all of the madness and fear that's going on in the world. Is that I come back and I look here and I say, what can I do with this man right here, the only man I can really do work with? And how can I continue to open up, bring more love, and bring more transformation to the world? And I have a genuine belief, stand, and vision that doing that changes the world. And that's what we can do. That brings me sanity. So we're at a breakdown in the forge, and the breakdown is how do we create what's next? What does it look like? I don't know. I start to sit down and brainstorm, and then I get frustrated because I get stuck on how it currently looks. And how do I do this just bigger? I'm caught in the old way. And what is being called for from me in order to create a breakthrough is to let go entirely of the old way. What if that fell away completely and we created something totally new that still honored the vision, but who knows what that structure looks like? And what that's driving up for both Bay and I is a lot of fear. And the fear is because we love what we've created. It's so profound. I believe genuinely that the Forge is truly a profound, life-changing, one of a kind kind of structure. And I think that other people feel this as well. And so I'm having a hard time letting go of how it currently looks because I'm worried, what if I fuck it up? What if I wreck all of the majesty and beauty that I've created and I go this direction, we go this direction and create something and it turns out to suck, or it's not as good, or it doesn't meet the promises, or and then I'll be screwed, and then I'll have to go backwards, and then I'll have to do it again. And I'm not saying any of these fears are true. I can distinguish them as fear. Fear's still scary, even once we distinguish it as fear. And so that is a place in my life where my work is there for me. And I've brought this and worked with this with my coach a number of times. And what my coach does in these situations is sort of ask me the curious questions, let her intuition guide us a little bit in what she asks me. So she doesn't say, my intuition is you should do this. Her intuition is just like, you should ask Adam about whatever. And then she asks Adam about whatever. And that supports me in my exploration. And she might ask questions like, well, how far have you gotten? What have you been up to? And I start to share. And the other day she was sharing like, okay, and over here, Adam, I'm just witnessing how and where you get stuck in your own process. And then she asked me questions about how and where I'm getting stuck. So all of that is me on my edge currently. Absent a coach, I would probably just be inclined to stay where we are, to just keep it the same, or I'd rush through to create something bigger without really giving it all of my heart and openness and thoughtfulness and all of that. So the work never stops. And it's still frustrating. So I'm in a breakdown. I've been through these enough times. I'm like, I'm clear. This is a breakdown, preceding a breakthrough. There's a real opportunity here. There's magic, all of that. It's frustrating. So that's what's going on. So Bay and I'm going to enroll her in this. She hasn't heard it, but I'm sure she'll be on board. We're going to do a live just to share more about this, our own process, because I think it's important for us to know, for us to model not having it all figured out and being in this kind of space and figuring it out as we go. Okay. What the heck was I talking about? I don't know. Oh, I was talking about coaches doing their work and how some of my breakdowns looked. Andrew, you say, I suspect you'll have another year of folks who will want to be leaders as well. I hope so. The cool thing is what has led to this breakdown, which is to say an excess of demand for what the Forge has to offer and the gradient that we allow people to move through now. Hey, Angela. Angela will be in the Forge next year too. Angela, meet Andrew and Monica. Monica, meet Angela. Andrew, meet Angela. Angela's a radiant sunbeam of possibility, and I'm excited to have her back. She was in Costa Rica with us this year. So, Andrew, to your point, our commitment is that people want to come back, and now we're being with the impact of delivering on that commitment. Amanda says, I feel like, is the general feeling in this life. Me too. As I do work to continue to open my heart and be with more of life rather than close to it, the experience I get over and over and over again is more and more of and I often am awestruck, gobsmacked, and a little bit shell shocked sometimes by like how much there really is to be with in life. Like to be with your pet dying, to be with everything happening with Russia and Ukraine, to be with mask mandates, to be with the pandemic, to be with just your partner being a little crunchy with you, to be with your kids calling you an out. Like there's so to be with paying bills, all of that. There's so much for us to be with. And I can feel moments, I can just feel the desire in me as I've gotten better and better at noticing this to close to it, to numb myself, to shut it down. And I think that's why as we age, it becomes easier and easier to shut down from it because there's so much to be with. Chogyam Trungpa, who I'm just going to grab a book. Again, look, these guys are modeling what Adam is not going to model. Look at this book cover. What is that? That does not inspire me to pick up this book, but it's a phenomenal book, which I did not tab anything in it. Darn it. This author, Chogyam, I think that's how you say him, Chogyam Trungpa, fascinating man, brought a lot of, I believe, Tibetan Buddhism to the West. And his philosophy for life, like here's how life is if we can remove the veil and really see it. His metaphor was you are falling, falling, falling. You are constantly falling. The only thing is there's no ground. So just imagine that, right? Imagine if you were in free fall and you're like, and you're screaming, you're grabbing a hold of stuff to hold on to, and you're like, oh, fuck, I've got a hold of something. Now I need to grab a hold of another thing, but there's no ground. And, if you can imagine that state, you can also imagine there's going to be points where you kind of realize like, you've been falling for long enough, you kind of forget that you've been falling. And then you sort of look down, you're like, we're falling again. And then you're in the panic and the fear of falling. And so I think that's a really great metaphor. And that's how life feels for me too. Very much the way you described it, Amanda. Let's see if I just want to see if there's anything I did. I've got one dog-eared page, or I've got two dog-eared pages. Let's see if there's anything here. Well, let's read what this paragraph says, and we'll see how it lands with all of us. Without proper training, letting go can be confused with pushing yourself to the breaking point in order to prove to yourself that you are a brave and fearless person. This is too aggressive. Letting go has nothing to do with enjoying yourself at other people's expense by promoting your own ego and laying your trips on others. This is what Chogyam here is describing, sort of like, I'm just letting go. I'm not going to worry about my impact on other people. I just feel free. I'm surrendered, and how you feel about what I do is none of my business. Chogyam is sternly saying, no, that is not what letting go is about. Arrogance of that kind is not really based on letting go in any case. It is based on a fundamental insecurity about yourself, which makes you insensitive rather than soft and gentle. We're off to a good start, right? For example, a professional driver in an auto race can drive at 200 miles an hour on the racetrack because of his training. He knows the limits of the engine and the steering and the tires. He knows the weight of the car, the road conditions, and the weather conditions. So he can drive fast without it becoming suicidal. Instead, it becomes a dance. But if you play with letting go before you have established a proper connection with discipline, then it is quite dangerous. If you are learning to ski and you try to let go and relax at an early level of your athletic training, you might easily fracture a bone. So if you mimic letting go, you may run into trouble. That's good stuff. Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior, Chogyam Trungpa. That was required reading in the embodied men's leadership training I took with John Wineland. Andrew's saying, I had a client state that one of the benefits of our coaching was that it really showed them the fullness and openness of life. It opened up a whole new world for him. What a gift to receive as coach to hear that. Amen, brother. Thanks for giving them that gift, or supporting themselves to give themselves that gift. Alrighty. Let's talk about David Medina's question. David read a couple, or asked a couple. I'm going to touch on one, which is David asks, how do you navigate the experience of people's expectations of you or things they want from you that you didn't do. So people have an expectation or want me to do something I didn't. How do you navigate between that and the space of being okay with it versus owning our impact and cleaning up any mess we created? And what do we do when we're unable to see why we might want to clean up any mess or apologize? Where do we draw the line here? Really great question. I love this. I'm excited to talk about this. So the starting point for all of this is empathy and an open heart. It's important that we begin this conversation by laying the context I hold to be true, my experience, which is that humans, by virtue, generally speaking, have learned to become protected and closed in our heart. And whenever we get into conflict or get hurt by someone, our nature is to close further, to close our heart. So the way cleaning up a mess typically goes is that we do something and we cause some kind of mess. Oh, I said that thing and it offended that person, or I did this thing and that upset that person, or I made a mess, whatever. And from there, we feel shame. We're embarrassed. Fuck, I'm stupid. I shouldn't have done that. Ah, this is terrible. I hate myself. Shame, judgment, whatever. So we have all of that piled on top of ourselves already, and that causes us to close even further. Then the person impacted by our mess has their feelings about it, all of which are totally fine because they're their feelings, and plenty of which may not be graceful at all because they're hurt and they have a closed heart because they've been hurt or we've created a mess. And so they direct all of that energy to us. So we've got this heart that's closed naturally. We've got shame and judgment layered on top of it. And then we've got this other person's energy layered on top of it. And then we try to apologize from that place. And from that place, why the fuck would I apologize? My heart doesn't have any capacity to acknowledge or clean up my mess or anything like that. I'm completely closed. And so what happens when we try to apologize from that way of being, from that internal state, is that the apology is basically about checking off a box because I'm supposed to. I should apologize to you. I made a mess, therefore I should apologize because Adam said I should, or because blah, blah, blah said I should, or, whatever. So this is our groundwork. This is where we're starting from, and this is how most apologies happen. If you want an example of how this has happened in your own life, think of a time when you were made to apologize as a child. Your parents, because they didn't get this training, and because they didn't get this training, and so on all the way up the generational line, your parents grabbed you, were probably had a fair bit of blame for how you showed up, and then were like, apologize to this person. And so then you're like, okay, I'm sorry. You're hurting. You've got all that stuff, and then you're apologizing. And so that's where we learn this. And we learn this, there is no throwing parents under the bus here. That is the hardest job in the world, and they're doing the best they can. So this isn't something to be blamed, it's just something to be distinguished. So then we can work with it. So we all learn this. This is how we learn to apologize. Which brings us to David's statement. How do we see why we might want to clean up any mess and apologize? And his question is ultimately coming from a place of like, well, but what if the mess I made isn't my fault? Or what if the mess, the impact I had is a function of how the other person felt or their expectations about me or whatever? I'm going to end by talking about boundaries. So there's a bit of a conversation there, but we're going to stay where we are right now. So from this place, we're like, why should I have to apologize? Or fine, fuck, I'll do it because I'm supposed to. And then our life, again, just becomes one more example of living our life as the expression of doing what we should do. Oh, I guess I'll clean up the mess because I'm supposed to, because apparently I made a mess, even though I didn't want to. Now we're going to talk about a different way to show up, how cleaning up messes really works. If we were able to do all of the work needed to open our heart back up. So that would probably include a bunch of stuff. The first step, and you generally speaking need support to do this initially, because this is not the default for humans. This thing I've drawn out is the default for humans. Make mess, feel shame and judgment and guilt, then feel other person's thing, and then close even further, become hard, become insensitive, attack. make them wrong for what they did. So we're going to flip that on its head, and we're going to look at like, okay, so the first step ultimately is opening our heart, and you're going to see why as we do this. To begin opening our heart, we got to unpack all of these layers. So the first thing is that person over there that we impacted, they got some energy they're directing at us. We want to let them off the hook so we can do our work. That requires some magnanimity. That word was tough. Magnanimity, some generosity. It requires some real commitment to our work over here and some willingness to let other people off the hook in service of us wanting to be masterful. And the way we practice with that is to sort of like, it's not personal. Their energy directed at me could be more artful, it could be annoying, it could be whatever. It's not personal. They're not at fault, and nor am I. And there's a whole bunch of other work that when I'm working with clients, we would probably do. But ultimately, what we're supporting these people to do is to release this first layer of energy, to sort of shrug off or to allow that off of their closed hearts. Sometimes the path to doing that is first to fucking blame those people for their crappy energy. It's hard to let go of something until I let myself express it. So often the first stage of this unwrapping and allowing our heart to open is just sitting down and like punching a pillow or like expressing all of the bile in the world that we have to express by ourselves onto a piece of paper, which we then throw away. We do not send it. We are not throwing that energy back at those people because we're doing our work. And then usually once we've allowed ourselves permission to do that, we can start to like release that. Okay, it's not personal. I can see how I might have contributed. So now what's left is our shame and judgment. And then we got to unfold that and let that off. There's more work to be done to do that. And at that stage, our heart can start to open back up. And from a state of our heart opening back up, we can start to solely get present to the impact we seem to have on that person. We might start to see like, wow, it wasn't my intention, but the way I showed up seemed to create in this person an experience that I don't care about them and I don't love them, and that they feel I think they're insignificant and worthless. And if you can really get in your heart, and this is only possible from an open heart, if you can really get the experience of someone being left in that, you will start to develop a deep level of empathetic resonance with them. Be like, fuck, that would suck. I don't want to leave someone in that experience. I hate being left in that experience myself. That's the last thing I want to do and create over there. And from that place, cleaning up your mess becomes very simple. It becomes simply not a matter of anything personal. It becomes a matter of like, wow, I really didn't mean to do that to you, and I'm so sorry for the impact. That is where apologies become very genuine, and they become very uncomplicated. And they become simply about like, damn, I really got the impact I had on you. I'm really sorry for that. Here's what I see to do to clean up. Is there anything else I can support you with? Is there anything else I can do to clean up? That's the sort of practice that we're talking about. So all of that so that you can see from that place, it stops being a question of why would I apologize? Why wouldn't I apologize? If inadvertently I left someone in the experience that they were worthless, and if I could get that there was absolutely nothing to be blamed, no one to make wrong, and nothing to take personal about this, why wouldn't I want to clean up that mess? Just like if I noticed I spilled milk on the floor, even though I didn't mean to, even though I thought that person put the milk pretty close to the table, I would still be like, man, there's milk on the floor. I want to clean that up. It's annoying. I still get to be a human about it, but like, of course I would want to clean up that milk, regardless of how it went. So this is really the practice that we're taking on, is getting all the way down to our side, opening our heart back up, and then getting empathetically connected to the human being with which we've created a bit of a mess. And from there, there's no justifying why you would apologize. It comes from a very natural, loving place. Now, David is also asking a question, what about when it's the result of people having expectations on you, or like, they're sort of like, Adam, you should always be kind to me. Let's come up with a better way of wording this. Maybe they're like, Adam, you should know that I hate it when people nickname me Dave. And you called me Dave, and now I'm upset about that. And it makes me feel like you don't care about me. And I had no idea about that. So this would be kind of one of the example where David's talking about people have an expectation. It's not been communicated to me. So we have to know where we stand, and we have to be able to do basically the same amount of work. It's not personal. Absolutely had no intention to do that. Sounds like this landed on someone. Me calling them Dave had an impact. If I can get past the idea that, like, fuck you, you should have told me, right? Now I'm making them wrong for how they feel. If I can instead just be like, oh, what I did is I called them Dave. I didn't know any better, and it had an impact on them that they didn't feel good about. If I can hold it with that lightness, then cleaning up becomes very easy. It's quite simply like, oh, got it. I had no idea. I should have checked in with you what you prefer to be called. I'll start calling you David. Is there anything else you need me to clean up? So these things become very simple as we're able to peel back the layers and remove the taking it personally and open our heart back up. From an open heart, this stuff becomes a lot easier. The challenge is opening our heart back up because the world has trained us that it is safer, better, and easier, all of which is true, well, maybe not the better part, to close our heart and stay protected and safe. Final thing is our boundaries. So in all of this, there are some people for which they're going to project stuff onto you. You should know this, you should know that, and they're just never going to alleviate these expectations. They're going to be like, Adam, you looked at me for 5 seconds and you should know that that's not safe for me and you're a jerk and I feel like you're a perpetrator. I'm trying to make up something kind of far-fetched. And so there's a point where we have to get clear internally, like, okay, I notice what's happening is, first of all, we want to get to the place where we're like, I can clean that up if I need to. Second, I notice what's happening is this person seems to have a lot of expectations about how I'm showing up with them. And I notice none of them are being communicated. And I'm getting kind of tired of it. Where do I stand on this? And this is the point where we might have to kind of let them know, look, I'm willing to clean up. And I notice that I keep there's these ways you expect me to be, and I notice you're not communicating them to me at all. I have no idea. So I'm willing to clean up, but I also want you to know, until you start telling me your expectations of me, I have no hope of meeting them. And so it occurs to me like you're going to keep getting taken out by these expectations you are placing on me that I have no idea about. And it's starting to chafe a little bit, and you don't have to change that. But I want you to know I'm going to stop apologizing for something like that because it's getting to the point where there's really not much I can do other than hold you with kid gloves and walk around you on eggshells. And that's not my commitment in the world. So that's an example where I'm getting clear on my own boundary and then not using the boundary to shove someone over, being very loving with them, not requiring them to change at all, not requiring them to be any different, but instead presencing what I'm noticing, sharing what I'm noticing internally about how that's landing with me, and then letting them be in the conversation with me, and then they can choose what to do from there. Notice I'm not telling them they need to create boundaries. I'm not telling them they need to start creating agreements. This is an example of how our being with people is transformational in and of itself because of my ability to just be with them exactly as they're showing up, and my ability to not make them wrong and to just like allow them to be and to share from a place that's very pure and clean and loving. That creates a clearing in which they can start to show up differently. Okay, I'm going to read what Andrew and Monica have said here. Andrew says, I find it so interesting to actually hold space for people to blame others or come from a victim. Why do you find that interesting, Andrew? I know for myself, I generally would avoid that and look at where I need to be accountable and take ownership. The first stage of responsibility is being responsible for the moments when we are unwilling to be responsible. That's a bit of a mind fucker. The first stage of learning how to be responsible is being responsible. You can put it a bit differently, being responsible for your irresponsibility. So when you are not yet at a stage, when you are not yet willing to set aside your victimhood or not able, that becomes what you must be responsible for. And by being responsible for it, I mean you got to be willing to let yourself be in a victim. That's a part of being human too. And a lot of us that get trained in leadership and are committed to like transformational work, it's a real struggle. I have the same thing, Andrew. It's a real struggle to let ourselves be like, fuck you, world. You did this to me, and hang out there. But until we can hang out there, we can't move past it. I was actually supporting someone, a coach who's up to all kinds of things. They just came back from a huge retreat that they were leading, creating all kinds of magic in the world. And this is exactly the thing that I was supporting them with was, they had all of this, like, here's what I need to do. And I got this and blah, blah, blah. And I said, first of all, it makes complete sense to me that you would feel kind of victimy and like fuck you, world. I could feel their energy drop a bit just in that I was holding the space for it to be okay in my being. And then as we checked, they're like, well, yeah, I kind of feel like a victim. And I asked and they said, I kind of feel like a victim and I don't like it and I don't want to hang out there. And I was like, yeah. So there's this sense of victimhood. And what's your relationship to the fact that you feel like a victim, right? So what's the story they have about being a victim? They started to see like, well, I don't like it and it means I'm not good enough and I'm going to stay here forever. And all of that is a place where their heart hardens and closes to whatever's going on for them. Whereas if we could really be open-hearted with ourselves and where we were at was feeling like a victim, from true love, there would be nothing to change. Just be like, oh, got it. You feel like a victim. What do you need? How can I put my arms around that and love that? Monica asks, have you ever had someone balk at the term clean up? Sure. I have people balk at the all manner of terms. I'd like to have a conversation with you about leadership. No. Can I reflect something to you? Oh, you talk like a coach. I would like to acknowledge you. Oh, you're so coachy, Adam. Why don't you just say that you want to give me a compliment? Because I want to acknowledge you as opposed to giving you a compliment, and these are distinct. So, again, people will have a reaction to all manner of things. What is important to me is that I look inwards. I do my own work with my own coach, and my counselors and my sponsors and all of that. I check in, and do I trust myself? Do I trust myself that where I'm coming from when I talk about cleaning up is a pure place? Or am I just delivering this like a piece of paper with check boxes where I'm like, must clean up? And if I check in, I'm like, this is coming from a really pure, clean place. I just want to make things whole again. And someone's like, I really hate that term clean up. I'd be like, okay, great. I'm not attached to the term. How can I speak about this that would be different? And I'm happy to use whatever term would support them. It really doesn't, it's not about the terminology. And it's okay for people to get caught on the terminology. My job is to not be caught on it myself. So use the word I think does best. And if people are like, that doesn't work, I hate that term, great. How can I describe it? I want you to like take responsibility. Great, happy to do that. So, and then we're just going to have the same conversation because fundamentally the words just sit on top of our being. They give us access to stuff because then we can distinguish it. It's the gift of language. But it doesn't matter what we call it. Andrew saying, a lot of the folks I'm in conversation with will look to have ownership over themselves when things aren't going as they want. E.g., what can I do better? What do I need to change? And Andrew's saying, what I see in this is really holding the space for them to actually express their frustration, their resentment, and allowing that to be perfectly okay. Yeah, so you can think of it this way. Fundamental tenet, Zen principle, you cannot leave a place until you've been there. Ground rule, number one. So if where you are is victimized, frustrated, mad at the world, and unwilling or unable to let go of that, then all of the conversation about how can I be responsible, what can I do better, what do I need to change, will sit atop that. And just like if this stuckness, this victimhood had a rubber band attached to it, you can spend as much energy as you want running away from it, trying to operate over top of it. But it's like the rubber band attaches this and you, and what you're gonna find is it requires more and more effort to stay where you are. you get diminishing returns. You have to put further effort, greater and greater effort to move forward less and less. And eventually you reach a point where you're not even able to move forward. You're just straining to stop moving back until eventually you slap back to that place that you never really left. What coaching, and that creates usually a breakdown, quite a fundamental, profound, big fucking breakdown that's quite traumatic. And that's the point where you can kind of address this stuff because you're just like, you blow up, you have a break. Fuck you, world. Smash your house up, whatever. The gift of coaching is it allows you to see this, to distinguish it for yourself, and to get present and intimate with it and do that work before it becomes quite so strained and before so much has been built on top of this dynamic. So you can kind of instead slow down, come back here, heal, let yourself be the victim, and then start moving forward. And that's what we're doing in coaching. That is the fundamentally healing aspect of transformational work. All right, we got just a couple more topics I'm going to hit. Tibby? I don't know how I say your name. I think it's Tibby, but it might be TB. Anyhow, I'm going to say Tibby and hope I get it. Tibby Sator. Sounds Brazilian. Would that be Sator? They've got an accent aigu over their A. I'm not familiar with that accent outside of French, and I don't usually see it on an A in French. TB says, could you talk about the anatomy of your, Adam, coaching approach? What makes your coaching masterful? Thank you. TB, I'd love it if you'd tell me a little more of what you mean by the anatomy. I'm going to take a swing, but if you can give me a comment, it'd be very helpful. Slovakia, cool. I don't know any Czechoslovakian. I was going to try to say stuff. Dziękuję, but I think that's Polish. Dzień dobry. Anyhow, so I'm going to put my attention on what makes coaching masterful, because that's the answer I can speak to. And Tibby, if you are willing, my structure. Okay, great. I'll come back to that then. So what makes coaching masterful is a few things. One, just a lot of practice. I've been in this game for 11 plus years now, so I've coached a lot of people. And two, I've worked with the coach the entire time. So what that means is I've worked with an ontological coach the entire time. So that means I've been working with someone who has not given me strategies and hacked my business funnels and done all that stuff. I've hired people like that too, but fundamental to my commitment to master as a coach has been working with someone who can support me to create the breakthroughs in my being over the last 10 years. And so what that does is every time I notice, this victimhood thing I was talking about, and like the person's just being unwilling to be a victim, the only reason I can see that is because of the breakthroughs that I created something like 7 years ago with my coach, where I was doing the exact same thing. And I was frustrated. I was like, I'm trying so hard to be a responsible leader. And she was like, yeah, it seems like you're trying really hard with a lot of effort. And I was like, fuck, it's so much effort. She was like, yeah, tell me more about that energy right there that just started to express. I'm like, I'm annoyed and I feel horrible and I hate this and it sucks and I'm trying to get on top of it and be responsible for all of that. And she was like, yeah, it seems like that's not working for you. So what that allows is me to create the breakthroughs in my being. And from there, I don't have to think of a bunch of strategy. I don't have to grab a book and flip through it to figure out what's that passage that I need to give my client at this point. I know my the name Wes is in here and it turned red into wed. I know I read something that could help this. I don't have to do any of that because now that I'm able to simply be with my own victimhood, I can also be with my client's victimhood. I'm not trying to move it out of the way. I'm not pretending it's not there, or I'm not making it really significant and wallowing in it. And so instead, I can simply be like, oh, it seems like what's going on for you is a sense of victimhood. And it seems like what you're trying to do about that is run away from it. What's the internal story that has you doing that? Because I believe at our core, the human state is to be with whatever's showing up. And because of the beliefs and stories we learn growing up, hey, Satchko, nice to see you. Because of the beliefs and stories we learn growing up, we then create a relationship to something that has us run away from it. So I just become curious about that. So that's the soul of mastery. There's more that I'm going to add now. I'm going to talk about structure and anatomy more specifically, but like when coaches come to me and are like, how do I become really masterful? Hire an ontological coach. Don't hire a business coach. Do those things if you want, but put working with an ontological coach right front and center. That is the most potent thing you could possibly do in your own life if you're committed to a path of transformation. Tibia is saying, and if you coach around something you haven't experienced or gone through. So there's two ways I can look at your question, Tibia. The first would be in the realm of doing. So like imagine someone's like, hey Adam, I'm trying to do this big giant corporate executive merger and I don't know how to I'm scared and I don't know how to deal with like the corporate takeover and the I don't know anything about that. But it's not my job to know anything about that. I'm not supposed to be a master of my client's domain. That would be ridiculous. Notwithstanding that, most coaches that aren't doing ontological work internally, they make that their bread and butter. I need to be the master and then I can tell them the thing to do. And then they become consultants and then they tell the client and then they have the flat road. And then the client says, I'm just using my coach to not trust myself and we're good. Thank you very much. So on that level, I don't know. I've never gone through that in my own life and I don't need to. More importantly, where I can look and support my client is on the level of being. And I can notice who is this person being as they go through there. What I notice is that they've got something that they're overwhelmed about. They're really scared. They're making it significant. And I can start to ask questions like, what are you doing from your significance? And I can see the significance. I can feel it because I've been supported by my coach to create breakthroughs and be with my own significance rather than operating over top of it. And so from there, all I have to do is be with my client and notice what's happening and reflect that to them and ask them about it and trust their own process. The follow-up question to this that you might ask, Tibby, is like, yeah, but what about if you have a client who's like their way of being and what is happening there is something you've never, like, what if your client is up for a breakthrough you haven't yet created, Adam, basically? So first of all, in transformational work, this is why coaches, I believe, really owe it to their clients and to themselves and to the possibility that's available through this life, just to the world, to keep working with their own coach so that they continue to find their own breakthroughs and be working on it. My job is not to be formed and completed and done in my work. I often think of coaching a little bit like me and the client scrabbling over rocks. There's a full moon, so you can kind of see, but it's a bit dark, and there's the water crashing behind us. We're near the beach, and we're scrabbling over the rocks, and I'm like half, maybe a step in front of them, and I like stumble, and I'm like, oh, watch out for that rock. I just fell on it. And then like I pull ahead, and then they kind of come up, and we're together for a while, and I'm like, how's this going? And then I go a little bit further. So I don't need to be all done. I just need to be half a foot forward in front of my client. And one of the things that's beautiful about the way this work works, the nature of the universe, if you want to call it that, if you wanted a more robust kind of scientific or theoretical explanation, you can go and look at the 9 energetic laws where I lay out very specifically and pragmatically why this is the way it is. But for now, we're just going to take that as granted. The way the universe happens to be, you as coach are going to draw people to you that are up typically for the same breakthrough you are, or for the breakthrough you just had. That tends to be the way it is because your way of being resonates into the world and draws people to you. So the upshot of that is when coaches are complaining about their clients and saying, I just need a bigger class of client. Nah, you just need to take on the breakthrough that you've been resisting. You need to get supported ontologically so you can create a breakthrough and be with whatever's happening, support your clients, and then you're going to naturally draw clients to you that are a bigger class. You need to start creating yourself as a bigger class. You need to create that breakthrough. So Again, that's kind of how it works. I'm going to finish up this piece by talking about the anatomy of masterful coaching, which is super simple and boring. A lot of the rock star coaching I talked about initially, um, a lot of what they're doing is reinventing the wheel, coming up with their own fancy distinctions for something that has already been really well laid out by the International Coach Federation. Bureaucracies, they're not great at a lot of things, but this is one of the things they've done really well. And I've worked with a lot of the coaches that were instrumental in creating that. They've coached me, they've supported me. So these rock star coaches are like, here's the distinction, here's how a good coaching call looks, blah blah blah. And it's fine. It's not that it's bad. It's often just a reinvention of the wheel. And consequently, if you or I were to go and reinvent the wheel, we're probably going to miss a lot of the stuff that's been evolved over the years in how we create a wheel. And the other thing these rock star coaches do is they get into this, they kind of make coaching overly glamorous because they're trying to be rock stars. So it's all sexy and it's like deep coaching. I only coach depth. I only coach being. I coach the soul line, never the goal line. It all sounds so sexy and it does a tremendous disservice. The disservice it does is it doesn't let any of us, it takes away our willingness to just be in the mundanity of life. And have any of you noticed that life is pretty fucking mundane a lot of the times? I'm not saying it's always mundane. It's profound and rich and amazing, but it's also boring and stupid and profane. And so to be fully expressed and fully receptive to life as it shows up, we got to have capacity for all of that. And so the part of that that really leads to masterful coaching is a willingness on the coach's part, my part, to stand for the basic, boring building blocks of coaching. And I will give you those now. I call this coaching for dummies. Coaching for dummies has 4 components. Sorry, I was wrong. It's coaching for dummies and really smart, brilliant coaches like you and I, and leaders. Component 1 is, where is the person right now? Where is the client currently? We need to know where you are. This is like looking at a map, and if there's no little thing that says you are here, the map's not helpful. If I don't know where I am, there's nothing that map can do for me. So where are you? Step 2, the second thing we need is, where do you want to go? Where are you aiming to get to? Looking at a map, seeing where you are, and then being like, great, I got to run, and there's a wall there, so I got to get around it. It's very much putting the cart before the horse. We need to know where we are and where we want to get to. Once we have those 2 things, we need to know what's the gap between these 2. Sorry, I guess it'd be like that. What's the gap between where you are and where you want to get to? What is in the way? And only once we have those 3 components do we work and coach to close that gap. So that's the first boring. It's not really boring if you're empowered in it, but like that's the first kind of mundane aspect of coaching, the structure. The second piece that I think is really important that most coaches shy away from are projects. Projects are the tangible results someone wants to create in their life that would be a measure of having achieved their breakthrough. So if someone was like, I want to have a breakthrough in my relationship with my child, I'm going to go, great, tell me more. And they're going to say, oh, I want like us to have so much fun and to like really love each other and to share back and forth. I want a lot of intimacy. Great, beautiful vision. Now, a year from now, what is something that you and your child might be doing? What is a result you and your child could take on that would be reflective of you having created this breakthrough? And people get stuck in this. They want to stay just in that beautiful vision without making anything tangible. We want to avoid putting a line in the sand because of all of the meaning and significance we attach to when we make a declaration and we don't achieve it. We'd rather not confront the feelings of failure and the stories about what that means about ourselves. And consequently, what happens is that you end up coaching people on this vague notion of a nice relationship with their child, but you have nothing to actually measure the movement towards it. And consequently, your clients, without a project, end up sort of like feeling good about the coaching, having conversations that are neat, creating awareness, and nothing really changes in their life. So it ultimately becomes kind of navel-gazy. Most coaches resist creating projects because they resist it in their own lives. And they've created all these fancy reframes slash workarounds like, oh, I don't have goals anymore. I have experiments. That's great, but are you actually empowering them like a goal? Or the other dodge that I see often is like, I did away with goals. Now I just have impossible goals, which is kind of like the idea is like a moonshot, right? I'm going to create this amazing thing, but I know I'm probably not going to get it, but I'm going to declare it into the world, which is like tossing a penny into a fountain, being like, I wish for this. The trouble with an impossible goal is right out of the gate, you've eliminated any likelihood that you're going to really commit to it because you've already declared it's impossible. What makes a project profound is when you set a goal, it's a breakthrough goal, and then you actually show up committed in your actions and your work to create that goal. And what that forces you to confront is all the times when you don't succeed. And only in confronting those times when you don't succeed can you take on whatever the work is to overcome them so that you can end up succeeding. All of that is largely missing from rock star kind of coaching, because in that world, it's sort of like, I don't want to be hemmed in. I don't want to have to close my freedom off. I want to be all free. I only coach, there's all of that. And that further disservices people in their journey. Okay, Andrew, what are you saying? One of the things I have a sense for in the mastery of coaching is that real connection to curiosity, whereas I have a sense that I'm still tied to the results the client wants to create in a session. Yeah, it's a challenge. Mastery is in being able to walk both of those lines, to really be curious about whatever's showing up in the moment, and to also hold the placeholder for your client's results. Hey, what you want to bring up today, excuse me, how does this relate to the results you want to create? Hey, I noticed that we've talked about your feelings about your parents the last 4 days, and that you've got a looming deadline on your project. Can we just spend a couple minutes to check in there and see how it goes? Great, we've talked about your project for 10 minutes. How are you feeling? Do you still want to go down the original path of the coaching request, or do you want to look at your projects? So there's always a bit of this is the art of stand, where we don't push someone, we're not attached to them doing something, but we also don't fall over and let them wander all over the place. We're a loving, we can talk about whatever you want, but I'm going to stand right here on your projects that you declared you wanted, and I'm going to remind you of them. Andrew asks, what if that curiosity was enough to bring to a conversation? Well, I think I've spoken to like, there's curiosity, but there's also a stand. Often when clients are up for a breakthrough in a committed result on a project, meaning they've lived their life either doing what they think they should, or they've lived their life avoiding ever failing, there's a point where they're bored of that, but they're not willing to declare something, and they're stuck in the breakdown of it. They're like, I don't know what to bring to coaching because there's nothing I really need anymore, and I don't want to do stuff just because I should, so I'm just gonna let go. They just surrender, which is totally fine. I mean, you can use a coach for that. You can show up and share how it's going, but because fundamentally what's happening is these people are in resistance to a breakthrough, what ends up happening is they show up to the coaching and are just like, I don't know what to do. And from there, you can bring a lot of curiosity. The funny thing is the client gets bored of that too. And they're like, well, this just feels like a waste of time. So a stand for projects and a willingness to keep bringing it into the focus of the client is really what moves their life forward, along with curiosity, love, unattachment. And Andrew just finishing up by saying, Adam, your shares on these videos have helped me stand for and support clients and projects. I'm glad to hear that, Andrew. One of the things I'll say is that in the Forge, we put a lot of attention on supporting coaches and leaders to work with projects. And people do exactly the stuff I've described here. Some people will be resistant and will never declare a result. They'll declare like actions they'll take, but not an actual goal, an actual project. So they'll be like, I'm gonna make eye contact with 3 people every day for the next 5 months. Great, but to get where? Like, what's the actual thing you're doing this for? So they're resisting creating a deadline, a commitment that would force them to confront where they stop. Other people put all this attention up front to the project and do it beautiful, then walk away from it and never look at it. Other people do, whatever. They make the project and then they get fixated on it and they hate themselves and they hate the project. All of that is meant to come up. The Forge is a structure designed to empower people taking that on, having it go the way it's already predictably going to go so that it falls apart, and then we can create the breakthrough. The breakthrough can only be created if we're willing to allow ourselves to get to that point. If people resist ever creating a project, we can never get to that point. Okay, 11:22. Let me just check my topics, see if there's any quickies I haven't touched on. Oh, yeah. I'm going to talk briefly about how to offer a breakthrough to someone that is closed. So I was supporting a client of mine who's an incredible coach and leader this morning. And we were talking about, they saw this possibility for someone. Someone said, hey, I've thought about it. I'm a no thank you to this offer. I'm really looking forward to working with you. And my client was like, you know, Adam, I see possibility for this person. I can see a breakthrough that they're stepping over. You know, what do I do? I feel like in this email, I want to like acknowledge where they're at, but then like take the breakthrough point to the breakthrough for them. And so we were looking at that. And the thing that's really important here is a possibility of breakthrough. We can see someone is like, oh, if they took this on, I can see that they would no longer feel so scarce about time. And the reason they're saying no to the offer that I've made is that they're caught in this idea that time is scarce. And so as we looked at this person's email that they'd sent to my client, and I was supporting the client to distinguish what was going on, we could really see the person was not an opening to seeing something different. The person was very clear. I've want to work with you in the past. They were very grateful to who my client was. And they were like, I don't want to, you could just feel it in their energy. They were not like, and I want to see what else is possible. Reflect that to me. So as coaches and leaders, we can get a bit caught in this, where someone said no, and we're like, okay, I'll honor the no, but you're missing, there's something you're not seeing. I've done this many, many times myself. Again, I can see this because I've made this mistake so many times. And so what we want to do from our attachment to the possibility we see for them is we want to like make them see it. It's hard for us to let go entirely. So what we have to recognize, first of all, is as coaches and leaders that are committed to seeing what's possible for people, we can see a way, not the way. We can see a possibility, a breakthrough available, but not the possibility or the breakthrough available. Who knows how that possibility and breakthrough is meant to unfold for this person? Maybe they need to say no 8 more times before then they're open to the breakthrough. As coaches and leaders, what's happening in this moment is that we're getting caught on they need to see it now. And so what happens is the person's closed, they're not a yes, they're not open to that possibility, and then we want to like hit them with it like a rattlesnake snapping at them. Bam! Inject some breakthrough venom into you. And all that does is it leaves the person feeling made wrong because they don't feel affirmed in their choice. So what do we do with that? Here's what we do with that. It's 2 things. The first is that we honor what's going on. We honor that by acknowledging what they've chosen and acknowledging there's not really a desire in this person for some kind of new possibility. That's not what they're actually, energetically, it's not what they're asking for. Second is that we want to acknowledge them, and it's in our acknowledgement that we allow them to see the possibility that's available. So there's a little bit nuanced. What that means is not that we acknowledge them this way, where we say like, I love your big heart, and I really think if only you learned to trust yourself and open it more, then you could have all the time you wanted in the world. No. That's you sneaky, you're trying to slip this breakthrough in alongside acknowledgement. Don't do that. That just feels gross. That's like salesy. It doesn't land genuine because it's not genuine. Instead, what we want to do is we want to acknowledge the person. We want to see this possibility alive in them as though it's already been created, because it already exists as a possibility. So it's already there in them. And so we want to imagine to ourselves, we want to take a moment to pause, breathe, get into our own heart, open our heart, and put it over there with them and think like, who do I know this person to be at their highest and best self? Who is this person naturally, innately? If they created this breakthrough, what would I notice about who they are being? And we might see like, wow, I notice like a deep sense of peacefulness. I notice ease and I notice trust. Then what we do is we acknowledge them for those qualities free of any qualification. Hey, Reggie, it's always Reggie. Hey, Reggie, thanks. Totally got, now's not the time. And that's totally okay. I'm not going anywhere. This work's not going anywhere. I'm really committed to this. And what I notice about you is that you are someone of great peace, ease, and trust. I love that who you are is someone who trusts the spaciousness that's available. And I love your ease with what's going on. And I honor you for the places where you're expressing that. And I honor you for the places where you're in the practice of growing that expression. Let me know when we want to connect next. So we're not giving them an acknowledgement conditionally. We are putting ourselves in the place of that breakthrough having happened and then acknowledging them for who they are. Because, and here's the thing where people get this wrong. People believe, well, until they have the breakthrough, they aren't peace, ease, and trust. They're a fucking mess. So for me to acknowledge them as those things, that's disingenuous. No, that's a lack of your ability to perceive someone's depth and trust who they are. A breakthrough simply gives you more access and expression of who you've always been and already are. So we can acknowledge that person as those things already, because they're already them. You are simply being far more generous in your seeing of them than they are of themselves. And if you practice with this, you're going to start to notice that those people in them saying no thank you and you doing this, your acknowledgement will sit with them for days, months, years. They will have an experience of being seen in the face of them saying no to you, right? Not normally when we're very well seen. They will get the experience of being seen and loved in a way that is tremendously powerful, and it will sit with them for the rest of their life. And no matter what else you do, whether they come back and work with you or don't, you will have impacted them. And that impact will come back to you. So that's how we work with that. That's the way to acknowledge the breakthrough rather than forcing it in, rather than taking out a chisel and hammering it into the person's head. Okay, right on time. Nailed it. Hour and a half, 11:30. Big thanks, Andrew, for your showing up and your questions. Thanks, TB, for your questions. Really good one. David, who else do we have? Angela, Monica, Amanda. I'm super excited for the Forge while simultaneously being super frustrated that I can't figure it out right now, but it's a great frustration. And I'm excited to invite more people on this journey with us to hold space for more people to get the gift of this kind of transformational work. So if any of what I've said is resonating with you, if any of this sort of lands for you and you're like, man, I really want to deepen and become more embodied in living these things, not just knowing them, let's have a conversation about the Forge. Send me a message. I'm happy to put you in touch with the people in our group that are leading the work, that are just incredible and that have had tremendous breakthroughs and shifts in their lives, so you can get a sense of what that might be. Or maybe you just want to know more about it or you just want to talk to me. I'm open for all of that. Hope you have an amazing weekend. I hope that my tattoo doesn't hurt too much. It's the shoulder today, so it won't be too bad. This one, I'm not looking forward to going back. You can see it. It goes, oh, you can't see very well, but it goes down right by my nipple, and I'm not enjoying or looking forward to having that filled in with color. Have an amazing weekend. I love you. Bye-bye.